After almost accidentally dying of internal bleeding, it gets you thinking. Blood, guts, accidents, carnage. And I remember one of my first exposures to scare and absolute brutality of what the human body can break. Outside of shock sites, it was right on my TV screen after school. This is about MTV's most painful show, Scarred. No one did it like MTV in the 2000s, creating some of the most genre-breaking reality television shows for teens, and Scarred was just of the like. Airing in the year 2000 with only 2 seasons and 20 episodes, it showed one of the very first early usages of taking online video clips and turning it into a television format long before the likes of MTV's cash cow Rob Dyrdek. It gave us skaters and bikers wiping out into broken bones, bloody faces, and general full carnage, putting it on the main stage of MTV in between the Next Bus and Fear Factor. With the common theme of MTV in the 2000s just being hosted by whatever random celebrity had the time, Scarred was fittingly hosted by the lead singer of Papa Roach Scarred, who I believe they have said on the matter they literally only picked him because of what he looks like, which... fair enough. Skating culture had a really big boom in the 2000s with things like Brother Magazine and Bam Margera being an A-lister to skating teens everywhere. It was no surprise that someone was waiting to milk this cash cow that was ready to be taken, and it's even less surprising that MTV would be the one to do it. Fittingly, already having Jackass in their house repertoire, Scarred was a fitting add-on for them, and I would argue it to be their grossest and goriest one, with stories titled like Self-Stabbing, Zach Mutilates His Face, Turning on the Eternal Bladder, and many more that describe the footage just to an absolute T. Scarred is absolutely something I would argue as a pioneer and precursor to user-generated TV shows that does not get the recognition I think it deserves, probably because of just how absolutely disgusting this show was. Which, believe me, I'm gonna break down some of the grossest, gnarliest scenes of Scarred to you later on, but first we gotta talk about how we even got Scarred to begin with. According to the executive producer Brian Nashville, and speaking to Jankum magazine, which... yes, Jankum like that Jankum. He said there was a longtime executive producer at MTV named Bob Cusbit. Through an odd connection with his agent's wife, they had a kid who was watching all these crash videos on YouTube and Break.com, and she said to her husband to talk to Bob and see if there was a show there. Bob looked at it and came up with the tagline of America's Funniest Home Videos on Steroids, which... yeah, boomer core. Although Brian wasn't sold on the pitch line, the two set up 6 interviews tracking down the people and the best clips on YouTube or Break.com. Which, if you're unfamiliar like I was, Break.com was like YouTube. It was a user-generated site where people would upload their own content and flash games, and it was actually owned by the now defunct Defy Media company, who owned a bunch of YouTube channels as well. And, yeah, they just had like a bunch of random stuff on it that people could upload, and it seems like they had a lot of ties to traditional media, whereas that was absolutely something YouTube did not have at the time, and it's still kind of up. So after creating a pilot, Brian and Bob sat down with Tony DeSanto, who was the president of MTV at the time, showing him 2 or 3 of what they were calling scar stories. With how short these accident clips actually were, it was an impressive feat by them to be able to create whole narrative storylines. The way they were able to edit and splice it with interviews and slow down and replay clips and then show you the kid's scar after the fact really held your attention, got you invested, and at the end geeked you out seeing the actual breaking of the bone. It kept you on the edge. Brian says part of how they were able to edit things so effectively was doing this on the timing of a good horror movie. Being able to build up the tension of before the fall and then the actual carnage hit when you aren't expecting, and blasting in metal music when the hit took place, slamming you into a very genuine, real, raw reaction. They also were able to set themselves up with a very clear and easy blueprint to follow, with every episode being 5 scar stories with their formula of splicing interviews, scar footage, accident footage, and whatever else they had, because sometimes they even would get footage of the kid in the hospital and his x-rays and stuff and would just add it in with that, and quickly enough, they were able to create the entire Scarred production team, getting the green light from Tony to produce the series as a whole. About 4 producers would sit online trying to find clips to use for the show, but not only were they hunting down the clips they were having to use, they also had to hunt down the kid who got hurt in the clip, which at the time proved far harder than you would think. Nowadays, so many people, self-upload with their full name and have social media and stuff, but this time, Teenagers were, some of them, lucky to have flip phones, and a video of a kid getting his entire face smashed in the cement could have been posted by his friend's cousin, because more often than not, all these kids were in groups doing all this dumb stuff together, because you're not going to do anything dumb if you don't have an audience. So they have to be tirelessly trying to track down 16-year-olds in Idaho who broke their arm once. Now, once they did get into contact with the person and agreed to doing the show, like most clip shows and even just usage of internet and general media, no one was ever properly compensated or financially compensated literally at all for the usage of their videos for MTV. I think they said you'd get a free t-shirt, and to be fair, in the 2000s, getting a free t-shirt was pretty good. Even nowadays, a lot of people will do a lot of stuff just for a free t-shirt. One of the most important parts of creating media and entertainment is holding your viewers' attention till the end of it. And I'm going to hold your attention by saying Scarred has lost media that I'll be discussing. And Scarred had a really effective means of doing this by having the most up clip of the week. So of course you're going to sit there and wait, because you're going to see one gnarly clip and be like, oh, that was bad. And then you remember, oh, that's not the worst this episode, and you're locked in. You're gonna sit there and wait for the most effed up clip of the week, regardless. Now, I would personally argue the most notorious, most effed up clip of the week is the one where that kid rips his nuts in half. It was a kid named Mitch from Massachusetts who appropriately had his story named Nailed in the Nuts. Mitch didn't notice a jagged piece of metal on a rail and falls off his skateboard while trying to grind and lands on it, splitting his nuts open. After taking his fall, he put his hand in his pants and said, "I've got my ball in my hand, outside of the sack." Luckily, he was able to get it surgically reattached into said sack it had fallen out of, which, if you look into it, this happens more than you would think. Mitch is one of the only 2 people in Scarred history who were not able to show their scar, and obviously they actually had to clip his clip and not show the entirety of it of Scarred, because it is TV and you can't show a teen's nuts, let alone outside of his body. But Brian did confirm and say that he himself saw the video in full, and it is just as gnarly as it sounds. And I know you're dying to know, the other person who could not show their Scarred was a butt scar, which, same thing. Along with everyday people getting injuries, Scarred would fairly regularly have a celebrity do a scar story of their own. Very unsurprisingly, a lot of MTV regulars would show up, like Wee Man or Steve-O, talking about the time Johnny Knoxville accidentally stabbed him with a samurai sword, and big-name skaters and BMXers like Tony Hawk and Wade. But they did oddly have an entire, sponsored promotional episode with Andy Samberg for a movie called Hot Rod, which is now genuinely considered lost media. There are people who, we'll call them scarheads, rise up scarheads, that still upload and find the videos and have them all cataloged on Vimeo and stuff like that. You can find all the episodes of Scarred now. There's a long time, a lot of them were actually lost, and a lot of Scarred was considered lost media because MTV just didn't hold on to stuff and ditched it, and it was the 2000s, but almost all of Scarred has been recovered. But this promotional Hot Rod episode just has not surfaced. It was Andy essentially doing everything Jacoby does, but it's just gone, and there's not really a way to pull it up. I think people have even reached out to MTV trying to get it, and, radio silence. So Scarred is a very more diverse television show than you may have expected. And for a show about kids slamming and getting injured and broken bones, this really was something people cared and curated and put an amount of love and passion into. A big thing with Scarred, and what made it more interesting to watch, is you would not see the same injury twice in one episode. Not even sometimes the same limb. They made sure to have a vast variety of content for you. Even just vehicles. Instead of seeing 4 kids on skateboards slam back to back, you'd see someone on a motocross bike, someone BMXing, someone on rollerblades. Just there were genuinely people that cared and put effort into Scarred as much as it was a nasty little gore show for teens. Season 1 had its own special finale episode, almost like their version of a reunion show, where they would do an hour-long countdown of the worst accidents from the season that were voted on by the viewers at home. Which, man, that used to be such a prevalent thing with TV that is something that's obsolete and ceases to exist, but voting from home, online, or on phones was such a 2000s cultural thing that just doesn't exist, and that is so violently odd to me now that I'm thinking about it. In between this giant countdown video, Jacoby himself would list out more, random little countdowns like best scream, weirdest object to repair someone's wound, like screws and stuff like that. Just, keeping the viewer engaged and we're not just watching a full non-stop compilation video. After that, season 2 took on essentially that entire countdown style clip show vibe versus season 1 being like a story collection. It would count down from 5 to 1 being the most messed up clip of the week. Just for the record, for anyone who didn't watch the show and you're hearing me, say like, oh, it's so nasty, so like this was like Live League level. Like they straight up like were just showing kids' bones out of their body, smashed faces, ripped open. Like they had some super gnarly full surgery clips and they would just show this casually. Like this was on primetime TV. Like you would be flipping channels and just see like someone's nuts ripped open. Like they just had no means of like, I don't even know. The 2000s were crazy. The 2000s were crazy, and the 2000s on MTV were especially crazy. And along with this, during season 2, they would do a lot of callbacks to season 1 with 2 different formats. One being a Where Are They Now? Like we had our one kid Morgan from season 1, episode 2. He came back to discuss a whole separate injury he got from the in between the first taping, where he ended up discussing getting a gaping hole in his face from a fall on his bike. And there was another more, like, very 2000s and interesting segment called Mothers Know Best, where kids would, like, come on with their mom, and their mom would essentially, like, smack talk them for the entire accident and do, MTV-style horrible, like, parental control-esque acting bits of being like, oh, well, I know best, and, like, weird stuff like that, but, it's kind of cute. Now, unfortunately, Scarred would not continue past season 2, even though it still held really good ratings even after switching its format. They claim this was due to conflict with Jacoby's touring schedule with Papa Roach to host the show, but Brian, when talking to Jacob, actually stated something different. He says that the Scarred Live was what ended the series, a 3-hour live event that execs at MTV suggested they do. In very MTV fashion, it was hosted by a former playmate, and the big event of the show was motocrosser Brian Deegan, who's featured as a celebrity scar story, who was going to jump a shark with a bike on TV. So a really overproduced, cheesy, fake live stunt event that literally represents nothing to do with Scarred, about like real home skaters and bikers like getting injuries doing stuff. And it was just such an odd pick for MTV to do, and you could tell this was MTV. This had no one who actually worked on Scarred or cared for Scarred or loved for Scarred work for this. This was them being like showboating. And on top of this is also lost to time. This entire special live event, which I swear to God I saw, I totally probably didn't, but I swear I remember watching this on TV because I was not supposed to watch Scarred and I watched it anyway. But like this whole thing's gone. There's these pictures and it was hosted at a skating, like an actual like skate area. Why can I not remember what that's called? Skate park? Yeah, skate park. Why is it making that more complicated? It was supposed to be an actual skate park, but yeah, it was this overproduced cheesy thing. I think Wee Man was there with this playmate, and like, yeah, he was gonna jump a shark. And I do believe that, yeah, this absolutely killed Scarred. Like, you already had all this conflicting stuff with the host, and you do this? Yeah, the ratings are going to be trash. And of course, how MTV was at the time, they were just going to look at the ratings of that live event because that was their idea and be like, this did bad. Who cares? And they scrapped Scar. And I will say, I am treating this like a call to action. If you, for some reason, have the Hot Rod episode of Scarred or this shark jumping live special thing, please digitize it and share it to the internet. There are, once again, Scar heads who are genuinely looking for this content, and I feel like there's a lot of people that have MTV stuff backed up to some degree somewhere, so if you have access to this, please share it with everyone. But with how niche it is, it honestly just might be completely lost to time, and that is what it is. And I will link down below as much as I can to access to Scarred episodes if that is something you're interested in, but once again, it's very easy to find. If you just look up Scarred full episodes, people have whole archives of them for everyone to watch online. But Scarred truly is a timestamp for reality TV and MTV as a whole. Nowadays, you could never have a show like Scarred on, where they were just literally giving kids t-shirts to show up and talk about how their intestines got ripped out of their body and show us scars on their stomach. And for me, as, a very young child, as I was born in 99, which isn't that young anymore, but Scarred was a very pivotal point of television for me personally. Have you seen Scarred? Do you even know what I'm talking about, or do you have no frame of reference for Scarred? Make sure to let me know down below. Would you watch Scarred? Like, I wonder if, like, this would do well nowadays. I don't think it would do well nowadays at all. I think it would do horrible, but once again, the 2000s were different. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and possibly thank you for watching this video again, as this is a re-upload, and you might be like, Darby, your makeup looks similar to a different video you posted. If you're seeing this, I'm absolutely in Europe right now. What country? I don't know. One of them. But I am like stockpiling some videos to edit and have uploaded while I am away, and I am possibly editing this like in Berlin right now. So who knows? But that just before anyone asks about that, I'm rambling. Once again, thanks for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that notification bell. Follow me on all social media platforms under Darby Valentine. They will all be linked down below. Best thing you can do for me is share my videos. So if you share my videos, I love you. And once again, thanks for watching. If you like this video, maybe you would like my video about Dr. Gloves. I don't know. You might not, but you know, it's there, so give it a go. And once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.